Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Summers McKay.
And I'm Kristy Jansen. And we are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day to help change the tenor of the news media, the social media, and the direction of everyone's day to help make them focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, let's get back in the garden together, shall we, worthy podcast. Today is Thursday, the 21st of October, 2021. Kristy, I'm in such a gardening mood.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What's going on with your garden?
All right. So as you recall, when we first bought this home, there was this great Texas freeze last February. And unfortunately, an entire tree line, which we had, which was bamboo, planted bamboo trees, that was on the far end of our property and, reduced sound and created a really beautiful green space. But all of the bamboo while we were in escrow went kaput. And unfortunately, it turns out that replanting bamboo is just not particularly sustainable because while bamboo is a really, really great plant and grows very, very quickly, it also doesn't do well in changing climates with extreme freezes, right?
I think it's a tropical plant, probably.
Yeah. So instead, we have in my backyard right now 30 Arizona sapphire. Basically, they're a pine tree, right?
Okay.
They're a Christmas tree, and they're called the Arizona sapphire. I can't remember exactly the name of what they are, but we have done the research. We've looked into what is most sustainable, what will survive in huge temperature sways, right? Because we're going to have cold and hot, and the climate is continuing to change, and we have to plant regionally appropriate plants for the evolving climate. So it's kind of an interesting conversation about the evolution of what is native, right? Because sometimes the native plants that in a changing climate that you might have chosen won't grow to the height or, required space that a new plant might. So I'm really, really excited today. After we wrap, I'm going to go out with my muck boots and dig some holes and plant some trees. And
Nice.
Yes, I'm going to name them all. So, because I love naming my plants. And it's just, anyway, so I'm feeling very excited about gardening and about,
I like that.
creating. And yesterday's story inspired me where they were talking about how they had spruce trees that were the lungs of the city in Spain. And I like to think that because also in my area, there's been a lot of trees taken down because they are expanding a highway. And so everyone is really, really heartbroken to see all of these oak trees, right? These beautiful oak trees being taken down. And so I am going to go out there and do my part today and dig holes and plant trees and put some green back.
Very renewing of you. Focus on renewal even though it's fall. I've been reading Richard Powers' The Overstory, that Pulitzer Prize winning novel from a couple of years ago. And it's really nice. I really love it. But it's all about trees and people's relationship to trees. And it really does make you feel what it is to be a tree in a way that it gives you some sort of sympathy or empathy for the arboreal species among us.
For the tree experience.
It does.
Well,
it does.
I mean, okay, so we have two really interesting stories today, but I think yours should be like the kicker to the whole pod because there is a debate surrounding yours a little bit. So
maybe. Do you want me to go first or should we go put mine second?
I'm going to go first. I'm going to knock mine out because we're already talking farming.
Yeah.
Right. We'll go from farming into Halloween. So it turns out actually that planting these trees this time of year is the actual perfect time to plant these trees. And our next door neighbor is an arborist and they helped us choose the trees. And so we're very excited. But yes, the good thing is it turns out that there's a lot of planting that can be done year round. This article reads, This gigantic vertical greenhouse uses 100% natural light. Now, vertical farming, we know, is an amazing solution that allows us to grow fresh produce using a fraction of the water and the land that traditional agriculture requires. That said, most vertical farms need a tremendous amount of heating and artificial light. Well, Shockingly Fresh's giant vertical farm, and often in Worcester, is set apart because they are using 100% natural light. The farm, which is the largest naturally lit vertical farm in Britain, has recently begun harvesting thousands of leafy greens, herbs, and strawberries that will soon make their way to supermarkets all over the nation. Like other vertical farms, they do need less water and offer far greater yields than traditional farming. However, the fact that they use natural light means that their process isn't as carbon intensive as LED counterparts. Now, Nick Greene, who's the development director of Shockingly Fresh.
I love that. That's a perfect name. He's got a perfect
Shockingly
name.
Fresh. I feel like you can't say it without saying it with like a little growl, like Shockingly Fresh. Production isn't completely linear as it would be in a fully lit vertical farm, but they do match the consumption pattern of people. People don't eat as much lettuce in the winter as they do in the summer, right? So seasonally appropriate, regionally appropriate eating, feeding, and growing. Love it. So seasonal fruits like strawberries can still be cultivated within Shockingly Fresh vertical farm year round. That helps reduce imports, and it is ultimately better for the environment. You know, it's not carbon neutral, but it's definitely not as carbon hungry as an LED lit vertical farm. Now, other types of agriculture futurism that we love include hydroponic, and so much of these are becoming important in areas of interest in the world as we reconsider how we feed ourselves, how we use our land, and how we deal with food scarcity and food deserts worldwide.
And how we repurpose existing architecture in some ways. I mean, the growing underground ideas that where you're growing in old parking lots as we get rid of, as cars go away.
You just want to get back to the mushroom farms in France, right?
I do. I love that. Yeah.
So speaking about going into dark and mysterious and terrifying places, Kristy, what's your story?
Well, you were talking the other day about starting to decorate for Halloween, and you asked me, so what do you do for Halloween? I'm like, oh, I'm over Halloween. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving as we move into fall.
Right. You just punted that one straight out, and I knew the writers would get you. I knew they'd find a way.
They found a way to get me because, yes, it's Halloween and trick or treat, but it's also kind of the scary season, right? That's when we start thinking about the spooky ghosts and witches and ghouls and all of that. So this headline caught my attention. It reads how horror movies can actually benefit your mental health. And I was glad to see this because watching horror is one of those things that I share with my husband, and I kind of really like watching scary stories. Not all the time. It usually has to be like on a Sunday afternoon. I can't do it too late at night, especially if it's too scary. But turns out those frightening flicks might actually benefit your health.
Do you have a favorite scary movie? Really quickly, I know you have to get into the whole story, but do you have a favorite?
Well, when I was younger, I really loved campy horror.
Okay, like don't run into that barn with all the knives hanging down.
Right.
Got
so
it.
I'm not really necessarily into the whole teen horror movies, like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. But I think Halloween was probably one of my favorite franchises. The actual horror film Halloween in terms of the classic horror films. But I also love like the Evil Dead series because it's kind of campy and just ridiculously gory, or the Reanimator, which is another really ridiculous horror, like camp horror. Anyway,
all right. So truth be told, I am terrified. I don't watch horror movies because they scare me too much. But why should I? How and why would they be good for my health?
But what this article talks about is that for some people, unless you're already too anxious, experiencing the fear from the comfort of your couch or a cushy movie theater experience where you feel safe where your actual setting feels safe, but then you have the fear coming at you from the screen, and without trying to mitigate or ignore that feeling can help to actually balance it out it teaches us to manage stress in the moment without relying on other coping mechanisms. And it also allows us to face the fear in a controlled environment while building empathy for the characters, even when they're when we're a little bit discomfited by their situation. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a highly valuable life skill. And I don't know about you. So yes, the escape is not necessarily good for everybody. For some, it could be very triggering. But for me, it's something that I've used to even balance out my fear. For example, in this last pandemic period, the last year and a half, I got really into watching pandemic horror.
Right. I remember us talking about Contagion. Yes.
Contagion, The Stand. There was another one that I was watching, Containment. But I really like watching stories about viruses that go rampant, and like watching it. And also somehow I put all of my fear into those other experiences. It helps me like manage my own anxiety about the current pandemic.
Well, it's funny that you say that. So I don't love horror movies because I do get very afraid. And then I get like watching somebody get hurt is really, really, really hard for me. But I have a caveat to that. I actually love apocalypse movies. And my favorite apocalypse movie, so I guess my version of dealing with climate anxiety, is watching Earth apocalypse movies. And I love The Day After Tomorrow with Dennis Quaid and Jake Gyllenhaal, where they're like running from the cold and somehow New York Public Library's door actually keeps the cold out. And I can align with this article in the sense that watching those movies makes me laugh and makes me feel better about the evolving climate that we live in. And I appreciate that storytellers are telling the stories about, like, if we could envision a better future, it'd be awesome. But we'd love that storytellers would do that more often, sort of like the Avatar version. But instead, the Day After Tomorrow version is like, here's what's going to happen if we don't. So,
all right. Well, talking about good stories and good storytelling and helping us envision the future, we have other great headlines today on the Optimist Daily. I'll just read through a few of them. There's a headline that reads, "Mimicking cancer therapy has potential application in treating malaria, a different chronic disease, which we definitely need to address as a world." The EPA is drawing up plans to regulate the use of dangerous forever chemicals, help get them out of our atmosphere, out of our water and food. Super important. This company takes drone-assisted reforestation to the next level. Go check that out. A hummingbird-like moth has the longest tongue of any insect in the world. It's kind of cool to see that. What else, Summers?
Eco-friendly ways to deal with your dog's waste, which makes me laugh because the writers got me on Monday. I was like, somebody tell me the best way to deal with cat waste. I need to know. So they're starting with dogs. Following shutoffs and hurricanes, Puerto Ricans want a solar future. Yes, love that. How to keep an eye on your eye health. Now, turns out, guys, the most read article in the history of the entire Optimist Daily is an article about how to improve your eyesight and not need glasses. So we decided to just like lean into that storytelling and dig deeper on eye health. And last but not least, Nadia Akamoto creates a tampon that actually mirrors the shape of the vagina as opposed to just the vaginal canal. So that and much, much more, as always, is available on the Optimist Daily. Go ahead and head over there, guys, to read more good stories. We promise to continue to share positive, solution-based news with ideas on how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. We won't teach you how to run from the cold. We're going to teach you how to make sure that it's less cold. Please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com. And for just $5 a month, support reader-funded independent journalism. Kristy, I feel a little batty this Thursday. I think I just need to get out into the garden.
I think you should get out there and plant your pine trees and just feel the fresh air.
All right. Breathe deep, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more solutions. Take care.